Swami has said before that my commitment keeps changing. I figured that it is because the ego wants to please everybody and gets validation from everybody. Why is acceptance from others so important for the ego? And why is walking alone so scary for the ego?
Now read first two lines.
Okay. Swami has said before that my commitment keeps changing.
This is first line. Second line.
I figured that it is because the ego wants to please everybody and gets validation from everybody.
When I said your commitment goes on changing, I was indicating towards your unconscious pattern. If I will not warn you before you fall in ditches, then once you have broken your legs and you fractured your hands, after that warning will be more time consuming. So I'm indicating where you are moving beforehand. Now it is after that it is your choice. If you want to fall in ditches, you have the freedom to fall. But if you want not to do all kind of nuisance and stupidity, then you should become alert whenever I warn you. It is a kind of shock therapy, but it's needed for the good health. Now read the second sentence.
I figured that it is because the ego wants to please everybody and gets validation from everybody.
Ego is a lie. So it will be seeking all the time other egos, because they are also lies. It gets nourishment from other lies. So it will be always interested in pleasing other lies. Otherwise those lies will not support it. Then it will become lonely. And once the ego is alone or it is lonely, it starts dying. So the validation is always needed from others. Otherwise its game will be over. If you want your dreams to continue, then you need to be asleep, and you need to be in company of those who are asleep, those who are themselves intoxicated and in a drunken state. Anything which can make you awake from the dream, the ego will abhor it. The ego cannot like it. It always wants to remain intoxicated, and it wants to be in company of those who are themselves intoxicated or addicted. Lies always likes lies. If you want your dreams to continue, you have to be in the company of those who are unconscious, those who are asleep or in a sleepy state, those who are somnambulists. Read the third sentence.
Why is acceptance from others so important for the ego? And why is walking alone so scary for the ego?
Acceptance from others. It is important for the ego because otherwise the ego will die. Ego needs fulfillment from other ego. Otherwise it is just nothing. It has no real existence of its own. It's like if you go on paddling the cycle, only as long as you will paddle it will move, otherwise it will fall down. So you need this support of other egos to keep it going. On its own it cannot exist. When the ego is alone, that is the most scary thing for it. That is like a death for it. And if it remains alone for long, it will die. That's why we are always seeking company of others, so that we can forget our garbage which we have collected because of our identification with the ego, because of living in dark night, because of living in a life without any light. Ego is absence of light. Ego is absence of consciousness. So it can remain only in darkness. Only where there is darkness, ego can survive. So it needs always validation, support of other egos. For the ego, it is to be alone is scary, because to be alone is the death of the ego. But once you are ready to be alone, you will understand. Once you have this guts, this courage to be alone, you will become like a god, because God is also alone. The reality is one, so you can become one only when you are not seeking company of others. As long as you are seeking company of others, you have a separate existence, which is a lie. Because the consciousness has identified with this body-mind mechanism, so it has fallen in this illusion of being separate. Once consciousness gets rid of this identification, once it knows itself directly without any mean, without any other apparatus, once the consciousness is merged in itself, once it becomes one with itself, then it will know that the body and mind is needed. It is a mechanism through which the consciousness is functioning. But consciousness is like the light of the diya. The light is always separate from diya and bati and the while which is in it. It is qualitatively different from all these things. So you have to break this identification. That identification can break only once you have enough of dreams. I was just yesterday hearing to a story of a Jaina king. Osho was telling that story. The name of the king was Nemi. He was a man of indulgence. He had no interest in spirituality, truth. So he was always involved in sense pleasure. So once he fell ill, he was getting old and he fell ill. And then his wives were massaging his feet with oil, and they were wearing many bangles, and it was creating lot of noise. So it was irritating him. He was already sick and that noise was irritating him. So he said to his wives that you remove all these bangles. It's too much of a nuisance. Then they removed all the bangles, but they kept one bangle because that was, in India it is called Mangal Sutra. It is auspicious sign which all the married women, they will always wear, they cannot remove it. So they kept only that Mangal Sutra, one bangle symbolic of Mangal Sutra. And then they started again massaging his feet. Now there was no noise. He understood the great truth of life immediately. He realized that as long as there are many, there will be always trouble, there will be always suffering. When you are drawn in this one, then all your suffering, all the noise disappears. When there are many, there will be chaos, there will be noise, there will be always disharmony. When there is one, all this disharmony disappears. And he understood the whole game. He said, now I'm all right, I'm just renouncing this stupid life which I was living so far, a life of indulgence where I was always seeking the others. They thought that he has become, because of the sickness, he has become mentally deranged or he is hallucinating. But he said that for the first time I can see things as it is. He had never read any scriptures, he was not at all interested in those things, but life taught him, because he was a man who was yet alive, he was yet receptive. So he could, because when he was indulging, he was total in that. So he could get out of it. But people are never total in anything, so they are always stuck. So without reading any scripture, he understood the significance of life. As long as you are seeking many, you will be in misery. As long as you are going out, you will always remain a beggar. When you realize this oneness within you, you are a king without kingdom.